Hello, good evening, and welcome. I'm John Lazarus with Stories Matter and D&E Publishing. From the cashier who refuses to bag your groceries, to the coworker who threatens to report you just for saying you like the way her dress hangs off her body, villains are an inseparable part of our daily lives. As a writer, villains fill an equally commanding role in your fiction, driving the conflict, defining the hero's journey, and giving your reader that extra little thrill to keep them engaged. We'll look at ways to create unforgettable villains without resorting to gender, ethnic, or class stereotypes, no matter how true they might be, on this edition of Stories Matter. Speaking of villains, today's video is brought to you by United Airlines. Whether you're a business person whose company won't reimburse them for flights anymore, or an up-and-coming comedian with access to a time machine, United Airlines is probably your only choice depending on where you're flying. So long as you don't have small children, suffer from any medical conditions, or ask for water, United staff will make sure your flight experience is as adequate and bloodless as possible. United Airlines. No fatal crashes for over a decade. Now, just like in real life, villains in fiction come in many forms. For example, we have villains who are a shadowy reflection of our protagonist. They might mirror the journey, the experiences, the worldview, or the methods of the hero. Batman and the Joker are a perfect example of this. For example, they both operate outside the law. They both wear makeup, and they both keep a younger sidekick around decked in tight-fitted clothing to distract opponents. Next, we have the corrupt villain. These are villains who utilize great power and resources and the mechanisms of the large systems they control to enact their evil. They're mafia dons who have the police in their pocket. They're crooked senators who steal taxpayer money to give Medicare to lazy welfare queens. They're Chinese people. Then we have the force of nature villains. Examples of these include beasts, monsters, zombies, plagues, uncontrollable psychopaths, menstruating women, vampires, Chinese people again, swarms of locusts, Napoleon's armies, swarms of vampires, tornadoes, and despite the title, pretty much all stories about robots or androids. Tsunamis, lahars, which are a sort of mudslide full of pyroclastic material and debris which can occur even without being triggered by volcanic activity and threaten the Pacific Northwest in particular. Heroin, electricity, and the corrupting influence of big boobies. Finally, we have the anti-villain. These guys go against our protagonist, but we actually kind of end up sympathizing with them because they often make a pretty damn good point. We sympathize with Thanos because making a stupid decision like eradicating half of all life instead of just doubling all the resources is totally a brain fart we'd have. We sympathize with Hannibal Lecter because being a therapist and listening to people's problems all day would probably drive us to cannibalism too. We sympathize with Misery's Annie Wilkes because who hasn't wanted to break the legs of an author who wrote a book that sucked? Now, let's look at some tips to make our villains shine their brightest. Step 1. Choose a real-life model. Famous authors do this all the time. Pennywise was largely inspired by John Wayne Gacy. Vlad the Impaler was the inspiration for Dracula, and Monster's Eileen Wuornos was largely based off of Hillary Clinton. And yes, while people like Clinton, Kamala Harris, AOC, or Ilhan Omar would probably inspire great villains, you don't have to limit your search to the headlines. In my 2013 thriller, Game, Set, and Match, the murder was based on a woman from my tennis club who rudely refused to let me give her pointers. Step 2. Give them believable and even relatable motivation. In real life, villains don't need much reason to commit crimes. Child killers, for example, do it because it's fun and it's easy. But in fiction, your reader will engage more if the villain has a relatable reason for doing bad things. Maybe they're out for revenge. Maybe they think watching rich, powerful people kill each other is funny. Maybe they think it's better if women aren't left to their own devices. So, I suggest thinking of something you want from life and making your villain get it through any means necessary. If your neighbor has a loud dog, make your villain a dog murderer. If you're dealing with rent hikes, make your villain a squatter who refuses to respect people's property rights. Step 3. Don't skimp on the backstory. Most people aren't born evil. Upbringing and unfortunate circumstance play a large role in nurturing evil in the real world. For example, we all know that Bernie Sanders' radical and evil communist policies wouldn't exist were it not for his brother being gang raped by Rockefellers. In fiction, you can give your villain a tragic backstory, or at least depict the conditions that led to their rise. Like how Norman Bates's overbearing and controlling mother led to his psychosis. Or how Humbert Humbert's pedophilia was due to him being born in France. Step 4. Introduce them with a bang. I'll never forget that first moment I saw Darth Vader walking down that corridor, trying to stop those Wookiees from celebrating Life Day. Give your reader a clear message from the outset that this is a bad dude you don't want to mess with. Have them steal from an orphan. Have them blow up a convent. Have them blow up a convent filled with stolen orphans. Or tone it down and have them do a normal activity, but in a sinister way. Like Tai Chi in the nude, or fencing in the nude. That's all for this week. Don't forget to like and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll leave you with this week's author quote of the week. See you on the next one.